And what is going on, my Houston Texans family? And welcome to another Houston Texan edition on the Bleacher Report Network. I am one part of your show, Ruben Calvillo. Join with me, my boy Harley at TheLead _ Houston, dropping daily Texans Rocket Astros content. I myself drop daily Houston Texans. We want to shout out Bleacher Report allowing us to come on here. Always a big shout out to the man upstairs, Harley. We have quite a bit to talk about today because, as we mentioned on Monday, we were going to be at the Houston Texans season ticket event called State of the Texans. And we'll get to that in a second. How's it going, OG?
I'm doing all right, man. It's another day in Houston, another day for the Houston Texans, and another day to finally try to get closer to the regular season. That's all I'm waiting for.
I'm just looking at how many days until we turn that Friday stream into a Sunday stream. So it's gonna be here sooner rather than later. But what's special about this event for the ones who don't know? This is where the Texans give fans an opportunity to ask a question to General Manager Nick Casario and Head Coach D'Amico Ryans. Now, I think the first thing that we should discuss was the talkings of a New Jersey.
Yeah.
Now, the NFL is doing this rivalry week, and I think the Houston Texans will be a part of it next year in 2026 against a division
Mhm.
opponent. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Tennessee Titans. But
Mhm.
it has me questioning, Harley, because when you look at the schedule, when you look at week 18, you see at home Indianapolis, the theme of that day is Space City. So, from
Mhm.
what we heard from owners Cow and Hannah McNair, this will be a Houston inspired jersey. Dude, I wonder what they're gonna do. I wonder who they have. I mean, this needs to be the greatest city jersey like ever.
Well, it's the first one, so
The first one. So there's a lot
so yeah,
riding
that's,
on this, Harley.
there carries a lot of a burden already to it being the first one. Um, I wonder if we get to see it at all even this year. It
I,
feels like
I
it's
think they tease it week 18, which is
yeah,
why.
maybe that's what they do.
Mhm.
I mean, when they revealed the new jerseys, it was right before the NFL draft 2 years ago.
It was
So
leaked. I love that.
well, it was leaked before for a while, but it was confirmed and everything. They
Mhm.
had their official day when they let everybody know what their new jerseys were going to look like. So I'm excited.
Mm.
I am I love this idea from the NFL because they only like if you really think about it, especially the Texans, we're only selling three jerseys
Mhm.
in three different colors. Like that's it. And it's not like, oh well, we have a throwback jersey. Like, not really. Like
Mhm.
there's minor difference. There's subtle differences in the color change. Like the blue is darker now, the red is a lot brighter. But I mean, we don't have throwback jerseys.
We don't.
If and so the NFL, other teams, even the other teams that have a throwback jersey, like there's not much. They might have like the Packers I can think of with those ugly blue, brown, yellow ones.
Well, the Kelly Greens are always on display.
And yeah, those are for the Eagles, and so I mean, there's different teams with throwback jerseys, but what is there like a total of five jerseys maybe you can buy for that?
Mhm.
Like this is great to for NFL revenue is what I'm trying to say here is you get yourself another jersey you can buy. You mentioned the Tennessee Titans, makes a lot of sense considering the owners and the fans and the history between both franchises. Would make a lot of sense for them to wear that game next year. I assume that maybe that's a middle of the week Texans Titans home, or could that'd be great. What if it's a home opener?
Mm.
That would be fun. That would be so much fun.
Year two, Cam
Rocking.
Ward. Year four, CJ Stroud.
That would be fun. That would be
Mm.
so much fun. I'm excited about the jersey, H Town Pride. I don't know what Swarm with the Space City. entirely means. I think of the Houston Rockets, and I think of the Houston Astros and what they've done with their collective H Town themed kind of jerseys, and how can the Texans spin it off without trying to just take it off as a ripoff?
I wonder what the main colors would be because red's gonna be one of them. I wonder if
Yeah.
orange and yellow are also a part because you have to take inspiration from what this city has built, and that's a NBA championship team in the Houston Rockets and a World Series team in the Astros. So if you're talking about city inspired, they have those colors have to be in there, in my opinion. I mean, you also have the Dynamo champions as well. They have that
Mhm.
orange too. I I think orange, red, and yellow should be like a little colorway, something like that. I have no clue. I would love our own version. Like remember how they used to put Watson in the Rockets, the old school red and
Yeah.
mustard. Like
Yeah,
oh
shout out
like
to D Texans. He would do those edits of like Houston sports players, and they're like an Astros player in a Rockets colors themed jersey. And same thing like JJ Watt rocking a
Astros.
Astros themed jersey. You say the Dynamo, and immediately I think of their kits that are purple,
Yeah.
and they're pretty hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, this is the
And
city of syrup. So
yeah,
is purple is
I don't think they
purple
do
going?
that. I don't think they do that.
Oh, that would be
That
tough.
would be tough.
That's Houston. That's what I'm saying. Like
I know it is, but I don't think they're gonna. I
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
because of what it represents, even though, yeah, I can't see that happening. They're gonna be like, oh, it ain't PG.
Nonetheless, I am excited for it. It's going to be kept under wraps, which is something that the Houston Texans do very well outside of that leak from the last uniform, which made Derek Stingley look like Derek Stingless. With that being said, new uniforms coming next season. Super excited about it. Hardly another. I mean, the bread and butter was is the questionnaire. That's why Houston Texans season ticket members go because they get a chance to talk to head coach D'Amico Ryans and general manager Nick Caserio. Now, I myself asked the question in regards to the draft process and having them select wide receivers in back-to-back rounds and out of the same college, but for my one question about the draft, there was about 6, 7 questions about the offensive line. And Harley, I don't know if you remember the first question from a sweet old tiny lady was about the offensive line, and her first words were CJ Stroud was running for his life. Immediately, we heard the crowd go ooh, and you saw smiles from head coach D'Amico and GM Nick, but it was clear from the crowd, from the fan base, that the offensive line is the biggest concern of the season. And to me, that's what I love because that's one of my biggest concerns of the season, one of your concerns of the season. So hearing, the pulse of the city replicate what we've been talking about on our channels and here on Bleacher Report, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it was annoying to hear the constant questions of the offensive line, I understand why. I understand the concern, and it feels, oh man, it
What?
feels quite arrogant from Nick Casario to blatantly just disregard the concerns of the offensive line,
Mm,
because and I'm not talking about what he's done this offseason, but the constant questions around it, you can easily tell he was getting irritated by the questions around the O line, like if the Texans didn't do nothing. I understand the Texans did something,
mm-hmm,
but they did something. It's not, and they did something for the offensive line, and we're not satisfied. Why?
mm-hmm,
Because the moves they made now, leading all the way up to this point, have not in any way justified how the Chicago Bears have went across their offensive line. How I look at the Tennessee Titans, and just 2 years ago, their O line was horrible. And now I'm looking at it on paper right now, and I'm like, hey, they got some solid pieces on the offensive line to go with that rookie quarterback. They could be looking pretty nice. Who knows? And then I look at what the Texans did, and it's kind of laughable because you are trying to put all of the confidence and the hope that Nick Caley and Cole Popovich, and hey, I could be wrong. Them two
Mhm.
dudes might be the guys to transform the O line into a solid average offensive line. And we've said it many times. If CJ Stroud had his rookie year offensive line with last year's defense, you're probably sniffing an AFC championship game. So maybe that's the result that Nick Casario and D'Amico are looking for to happen. But it is just a tough sell to this fan base that you added a bunch of average to below average pieces. And just because you flip, snapped your fingers at changing the OC and online's coach, you think all of this is going to be resolved.
Mm. And I kind of felt D'Amico Ryan's also, feeling the same way. And what he said to one of the fans was, I think the offensive line is going to be, better than what people think. And like you said, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell because you know what was last year, where CJ
Mhm.
Stroud was the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL. And Harley, we both pointed to, you pointed to signs as early as week 2 of, the offense being garbage. I pointed to week 7 where CJ Stroud threw his helmet on the ground against Green Bay and said, there's a problem right then and there. And I just know, like, if we're having a conversation to, with some random fan and they ask us, hey, what did your Houston Texans do for the offensive line? And I tell them what we did, they're gonna say you didn't do nothing. I mean,
Mhm.
that's just the reality of it because we are fans, right? Fans see it as you didn't do enough to protect CJ Stroud. That's where I give credit to, owners Cal and Hannah McNair for putting D'Amico Ryans and general manager like Nick Casario up there to take all those questions. What was funny was they had moderators there and they asked you what was your question. I didn't I think a lot of people just said something, like they were going to ask about something else, but then just went straight back to the offensive line because there was maybe 4 questions that night that weren't O line related.
Yeah, man. It's starting to get annoying because I was like, all right, guys. And it's not even like you can ask about the offensive line, but there's ways to frame it
Mhm.
into different questions. It was literally the same verbiage, the same de facto
Like they were
question
just
about.
telling Nick, like your offensive line was garbage.
Yeah, basically, and then I can see in the next point of view, like, all right, I'm answering the same question over and over again. I'm starting to get irritated. We started getting press conference Nick when he's talking to media members instead of fans. Like we started getting irritated Nick Casario that could be very tough sometimes. He looks very blunt and kind of okay, whatever. I'm just gonna work my way around these questions and then get out of here. Like very, very weak, very
Mhm.
odd way of a GM to answer some questions sometimes.
But, that's general manager Nick Casario. Now, I would say though, Harley, they earned that trust though. You
It's
talk about
true.
back-to-back 10-win seasons, division titles, a win in round 1. So they've earned that right to, okay, yes, you might know. Yes, as of right now, you're doing exactly. You're trending upwards as a franchise. So for sure, after a down year from the offensive line, I am putting the trust that you know how to fix it. I just wonder how long that leash is going to be because, dude, we see a sack week 1 come from the left side. Dear God, Twitter's going to
Oh my
explode.
goodness.
It's
Yeah, my goodness. Like if you go come out week one and CJ sacked 6 times, oh man. Oh man. And honestly it could very much happen because the Rams defense is legit. Jared Verse, rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. They got Brandon Fisk as well on that D line.
he had
That
9
the
sacks.
Yeah, like the Rams defense is legit now. There is a universe where this Texans team goes into week one and they drop 6 sacks against CJ Stroud and you're still wondering as a fan, why didn't they continue to attack the offensive line a bit more?
Oh my god! And then what you're gonna hate see is the press conferences, right? What I could
We're
I don't
confident.
even want to see it, bro. But I could
We're
already.
confident in our O line.
We're confident in our offensive line. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
True. How
I,
would you even feel if, let's say,
disgusted.
if the Texans even, let's just say they won the game, but they gave up 7 sacks for CJ Stroud? Like, do you even, I know it's a win, but it feels more of the same of last year.
Then that's exactly what I was gonna say. We know how this story ends,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen this time and time again. Where if we see that Harley, week one he sacked 6 times. We are all gonna have that come to Jesus moment that we had last year, where we
Mm,
realize this team is not going to go to places that we think they can go because of
yeah.
this offensive line, and it was clear that CJ Stroud last year couldn't thrive under a horrid offensive line. I mean, who can? You see that week one, Harley, dude. It's gonna get real ugly real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Now,
There would be some overreactions week one if that happens.
now, let's flip it. You give up 2 sacks, one in the first quarter, let's say one in the fourth. You win the game. How are you feeling? I know it's 2 sacks, but there
Oh,
might be stories to those 2 sacks.
true. And you say the fourth quarter, I think of, oh man, was it a big third
Yeah.
down where you needed to complete a 3rd and 6, and
I'm not gonna give it
there's
a
a
perfect zero. I mean, because if it's a perfect zero, we're talking like, oh,
oh,
Nick,
yeah,
you did it. But
yeah,
in
two
in a
sacks, I'm content. I'm
three
content with
sacks,
it. 3 sacks, then, and that's where I was thinking
that's my
is
line.
it can't be no less than 3 sacks. It can't be no
No
more.
more.
Excuse
Oh
me,
my god.
no more than 3 sacks. I wish it was less than 3 sacks, but it can't be no more. Like if you have 4 sacks in the game, uh, the all line gives up 4 sacks in the game, and even if you win, but honestly, like if I see 1 sack in the game and you lose, I'm confident about the season. I'm
Facts.
confident that, oh, okay, so you went up against a Rams defense we just hyped up right now, and you gave up 2 sacks and you still either won or lost or was competitive for the majority of the game or the whole game. Yeah, I'm feeling more confident and I'm feeling better about the season despite maybe a loss. I would feel very good, that, oh, okay, maybe the offensive line, and again, we could be entirely wrong. Maybe the biggest issue with the offensive line was just the staff, a coaching change. You know, it's not entirely out there either,
It's not
considering
out
that the
there, but then
what I
you
mean,
add in the detail of Cole
mhm.
Popovich being on the staff.
Yeah, but he had no say last year.
You think so?
He had no
You think so?
assistant assistant O lines coach has no say with the
To someone
offensive
who
line.
okay, but to someone who everyone knew was going to retire the next year.
Mhm.
Like that's
Yeah,
where
but even so,
like
that's not his
that's where
title.
I start to say like you didn't really have no say, even though this guy probably told you this is my last season.
I mean, even so, I think
We don't
of,
know.
I
That's
mean, I
the thing.
relate it to real world jobs. I mean, I had a store director,
Talk to me.
one of the store directors that was going to retire that year, but the assistant store director did not make decisions
Fair,
for that
fair.
year for him. Like every decision and every
Mhm.
responsibility was still fell on the main manager's role because that's how it is. Cole Popovich could have said, "Hey, yeah, you know what, guys? Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that." I'm not saying he didn't throw out ideas, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's Strausser is the guy to implement those ideas and say, "Yeah, let's keep it going. Why not? Why don't we change it up?"
Mm.
Strasser obviously didn't do that. And then you also have Bobby Slowick and how he's doing things as well too. Like there is a world where the coaching staff hindered the offensive line to a point because there's times you're to watch the offensive line and I'm going, man, you can't tell me this is what they're practicing. Like this is it felt like not only a personnel issue with the players, yes, but it felt like, look, they're not being coached right. Like,
Mm-mm.
to tell me you can't even identify a stunt, that's a coaching issue. That ain't a player issue. That's coaching. Like, you learn that immediately. You always learn that. You learn different formations and whatnot since however you're young, So come on, that to me right there, that's already, I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is a coaching issue. Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to specifically blame the whole offensive line's poor play on coaching? No, absolutely not. Kenyon Green wasn't very good. Shaq Mason fell off the face of the earth. Drew Scruggs isn't a guy that can identify Mike linebackers and protection sets. All of that responsibility is now fall on your quarterback for CJ Stroud.
Mm.
And I think it could lead,
To a
again,
better,
opinion, I
yeah,
think it could lead to a better result. And again, all I'm asking for is average offensive line play.
yeah.
I get that this Texans offense can return to being, where was it? I wrote it somewhere here. The 12th ranked offense. That's where they were in
Mm.
2023 with an average offensive line, and they were the 12th ranked
Mm.
offense.
And
So,
yeah, and then here, now that I hear the argument about Strasser, yes, maybe it was, his way or the highway into the very end. And,
mhm,
maybe the Texans didn't want to say, or, or throw Cole, under the bus alongside with last year's offensive line, because there will be no confidence if we heard, oh, midway through the season last year, Cole took a step forward. So, when I think about last year's offensive line mentality, Harley, right? And I'm gonna use a quote from Shorzy here, right? The boys don't hate to lose.
mhm,
It felt like the offensive line last year didn't hate to lose. They were just out there. And this is where that culture change in the offensive line alongside of a new OC, a new O-line coach, maybe that all just adds up to offensive line that's better. And when you look at where you have to come from, the bar is that low. Second most
mhm.
at quarterback. Dude, I'm asking to be number 11. That's all I'm asking for from this offensive line. And if these guys go out there and care, and like we've seen from Lakin Tomlinson, one thing he always loves to tweet is how many starts he has and how much he loves to be out there. I think we're gonna get an angry offensive line this year, Harley. And that's what I want. And
I
you
hope
brought
so.
up, and you've brought up multiple times how CJ Stroud took a hard hit and no one was around him
Mhm.
and no one, stood up for him. I I don't think that's gonna happen this year with this new O line. I think one of these guys is going to step up, and I think as a whole, it's just gonna be contagious, and they're gonna feed off it. And like I said, with the new changes to coaching staff, maybe you get better, but we're not asking you to be a top 10 offensive line. Give me
Yeah,
number
no,
16. Give me number 15. 17. Hell.
yeah. I think it's delusional to even ask them to
Yeah,
try to be a top
absolutely.
10 offensive line, considering what you have right now. There's a lot of quantity of players, but in terms of quality players, there's a lack there.
Hmm.
So the Texans, they got their works cut out for them right now. Um, I continue to go back to the clip of Devin McCourty with Chris Sims, and Devin McCourty talking about his time with the New England Patriots and how they had a shuffling offensive line room that year. And Josh McDaniels was the OC, but Nick Caley was on staff. Cole Popovich was on staff. Jerry Shuplinski was also on that staff.
Hey,
Nick Casario was one of the guys in the front office.
VP.
All four of those guys are specifically here now with the Houston Texans in authoritative roles. And, well, maybe not so much Shuplinski, but the three out of the other four,
Hmm.
yes. So they're in, demanding roles to lead a change in the offensive line. And Devin McCourty mentioned how aware and how much of a plan that they had for their O line that was shuffling because of injuries and having guys in and out of the lineup. And he said they never lost a beat because they had a plan and they were aware of what to do when they were on the field. And I think that could accentuate here in Houston with Nick Caley and Cole Popovich. It's making sure these guys know what the plan is. They're aware of anything
Mhm.
that's going to happen, that anything's going to be thrown at them. And I think overall, you're going to have a coach here in Nick Caley, in my opinion, that no offense to Bobby, it is what it is, but I just don't think he was ready. And we found that out too late. He just wasn't ready to actually move the offense forward. There's no way you're telling me you got Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell, and you don't know how to use them, and you're an offensive coordinator. That just tells me you got a lot to learn.
And
You
forgetting
know
that, to throw Joe Mixon the football.
that too. After you talked about how good he was in the passing game, that's what really upsets me. Joe Mixon was one of the best screen receivers out of the running backs in the NFL before coming to the Texans. So you would think you could utilize that more. And the Houston Texans were one of the best teams actually last year, believe it or not, in throwing screens. But we wanted to see more of it to Joe Mixon because they continue to throw them damn screens to the wide receiver.
Man, I can't wait, for this to get underway. One thing for sure is we are going to have you guys locked and loaded and keep you updated on daily Houston Texans content. Harley, what do you have lately going on the channel?
Nothing much, man. I'm going to be doing a video. I haven't did it yet because I still have to edit it and whatnot. But I'm going to be doing a video around can the Houston Texans grab that top 12 offense again? Can
Mm.
they resurrect back into CJ Stroud's rookie year offensive numbers? You're looking at an offense that was 12th in offensive yards a game, 7th in passing, 22nd in rushing. And I laugh when I look at 22nd in rushing because that's a year with Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary.
Sheesh.
If the Texans return to that, but have Joe Mixon,
And Woody Marks.
could they crack top 10 offense?
You hope so. And can I
It's
ask
tough.
you, Harley, with
Yeah.
this Houston Texans defense the way it is, if this offense cracks top 10, how far do you see this team going?
They definitely have to be sniffing an AFC championship game.
They got to be in the dance.
Yeah, like they gotta be the final four.
Mm.
They gotta be. If they have what we believe is one of the best defenses in football, at the very least, a top five defense in the NFL. And if your offense is somehow trying to crack the top 10 statistically, this team better be in the AFC championship game.
Mm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't wait to see that video at the lead underscore Houston, myself 713 Houston Sports. For more Texans content, guys, you can come tomorrow, check out our guy James Roy, and then we can see you on Friday, 6 o'clock. We'll talk about whatever the hell happened with this Houston Texans team. That was Harley. I am Ruben. Do me all a favor. Have a real blessed rest of y'all's day.
Peace.